One thing is that the fact that we don't really see a black woman being like the definitive lead of a comic book. And I wasn't thinking in those terms. I was just writing about this human being who's having an extraordinary experience. And the fact that people were just like, oh, there's no black women who are in comic books. And I'm like, yo, there's Storm. And they were like, no, but it's not a Storm comic. It's an X-Men comic.
Yeah. I lay on the scale, you gotta glow, you gotta glow. She had my attention, she gotta know.
I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of the Let's Get It podcast. I'm your host Zeke, and in this episode I have David Crownson. This will be about his comic series, Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. You can find out more about his series by clicking the link in the description below. I have to give a content warning for any strong language used in the episode, and hope you have a nice day and enjoy the show. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Nice. So, the first question is, what would your origin story be, and how would you like to represent it?
My origin story, it would be a very superhero comic book coming of age story on the same human experience on like the level of like nothing, because it's not like too heavy like Batman, but it would be like on that, just because I love this superhero. It would be on the level of Superman and Spider-Man, because it'd be that happy balance. And I think I said this already, but I would choose it would be very much like a superhero coming of age story. And I don't mean like a superhero like I'm better than everyone else and all that shit, but I mean like these superheroes that we love, their victory is their own, like their internal struggle, and that they learn to accept themselves and love themselves, like for their strengths and their flaws, because they're not perfect people. um yeah, so that's it basically. Oh, you're on mute.
Nice. So, with that, we can go into the questions of why you became a writer and why you chose comics in particular.
I became a writer. I've always been a fan of comic books, and I grew up reading a lot of the DC books. Like my dad got me into Death of Superman. That's the first comic book I ever read, was Superman being beaten to death. Thanks, Dad. The very appropriate for a 6-year-old. So yeah, that was the first book I ever read, and I was really taken by it. So, and also like this is before when I would just read novels, and I didn't know what a sequel was. I was used to just one off, like one and done type of stories. So I was like, damn, Superman's dead. Like my young ass believed that shit. I was like, yo, he's never coming back. Because like people don't come back from the dead. So then like I just had to I was like, yo, what's gonna happen to this world without Superman? Like what? Whoa! Like that was real. It was like a real person died. So yeah, I just kind of like got interested in comics through that, and got into even like into Batman and into Spider-Man. Like those were my like top three. It was Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. And I thought Spider-Man's reason for becoming a superhero was really intriguing to me, because it's like, yeah, it's your fault. Like, and I just thought like that language of with great power comes great responsibility. We all hate hearing that shit now because of the movies, but like, yeah, like I was maybe like, I think I was 8 when I read Spider-Man for the first time. And like with great power comes great responsibility. It's like, oh shit, that's like a beautiful piece of dialogue. Like really thinking about that. And I kind of wish, I hope someone has asked him about it before he passed away. Like Stanley, like, yeah, where'd you get that from? That's a very like, because that's a very like virtuous gravitas thing to put in a comic book. Great power great responsibility. And and that's how we should all be as far as human beings, with accountability. And and I think that that's just like what a superhero is. But like, but yeah, I kind of just thought comic books were fun. It was a fun medium to read, and also like I used to get bored from reading like books a lot because I'm very visual as a learner. So yeah, I just kind of was uh that's how I got into it. And I kind of would write my own little, I would draw my own comic strips as a kid. And I was a terrible artist, but I would like make little like comic strips just for fun. And and then just coming up with the idea for Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, I think when I was like much older, like I was kind of getting into writing as like when I was in college, I took like a screenwriting course, and I just loved filmmaking and I wanted to write movies. So my parents got me this book called The Screenwriter's Bible when I was 13, and kind of like learned about writing scripts through that. Um, and then going to film school, I went to Academy of Art University, and then what's it called? Yeah, I thought I was going to write TV shows and movies. And we went to school for acting, so I wanted to act in those things too. So I thought, okay, I'm going to be an actor, and maybe I'll write or maybe I'll direct. But then got this idea for Harriet Tubman slaying demons. And it was just a funny idea to me. So I was like, oh, what if Harriet Tubman knew martial arts, and demons and witches and werewolves all exist? And Harriet Tubman is the chosen one to fight all that stuff. So like that's where I kind of like um that's where I got all my ideas from. And then having been a fan of comic books my whole life, I think when I was traveling, I stumbled upon this book at an airport, and it was like how to write comic books from my one of my favorite comic writers, Brian Michael Bendis. And I was like, oh shit, like Brian Michael Bendis, favorite writer. I'm gonna buy this book. Well, not here because it's expensive as hell at the airport. That's how they get you. It was like $88. I was like, fuck that shit. I'm gonna buy this on Amazon for like $11. Shoo. Um, which is what I did, and just read, the connection of writing screenplays and writing comic books. It's very similar. Both are very visual, but I think you have to be even more specific and even more succinct when you're writing a comic book. Like when you're writing a comic, like when you write a screenplay, you can kind of put enough to kind of fill in everyone's imagination. With a comic book, you really got to be like, like if this was like a drawing, I'd be like, all right, the panel Zeke is in panel 2 and is listening intently. And panel 3 is David. For some odd reason, he's wearing his coat indoors. His hair is nappy as hell or some shit. But you have to like write that shit in it, and be very descriptive but very succinct at the same time. Because you don't want to like, as a writer, you have to remember someone else is going to draw this. So you don't want to like overly give them stuff to do, but you don't want to like underdo it. So it's kind of like it's a happy medium. Like I think some things I'll come 50% in the script, but then I'll probably like email like references of what I want the comic to look like or certain things that I want. But yeah, that's pretty much that's pretty much it.
Nice. Let's unpack all of that. So when you explain to my Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, what was like their first response?
Can you say again?
What is somebody's first response to Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer when you try to pitch the idea to them?
Oh yeah, I think the first person well actually yeah, the first person that I think one of the first people that I approached was my friend, was Nicholas Draper Ivy, who does the Static book. And he kind of was like, oh, I'm kind of busy, but he's like, I'm not touching that. Like, that's Harriet Tubman. And it's okay. Later on, he did a cover for chapter 5. But I think the next person was Cortland Ellis, is who I approached, and I approached Cortland about just doing like the full blown series, and his reaction was hilarious because he was just like, "Yeah, we're gonna get in trouble. Let's do it." Like that was his exact reaction, and so I was like, "All right, cool." So he was on board, but yeah, I just think that yeah, whenever I would pitch it, it would just be like, "Wait, you want to do what?" And I didn't think it was that deep. Like to me, I was like, yo, like we just had Abraham Lincoln hunting vampires. It ain't that. It wasn't that. To me, I didn't think I was doing anything like oh, I like look at when I reinvented the wheel. Like it wasn't like that. I just thought it was fun, and I got the idea out of something fun, basically. So yeah, but people were just like, oh, "How dare you do this? How can you do this to Harriet Tubman? How dare you do this, David? You're crazy!" Like there's a lot of that shit. I was like, yeah, everyone calm the fuck down. But yeah, it's either it's 50% like it's 50% like shock and 50% excitement.
I could definitely see that. Just like somebody who's like a historical figure, everybody want to give the most respect, and then you just like, what do they give them more power? And just like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like people thought I was trying to like I could understand if I made like if it was Harriet Tubman twerking on ice or some shit. If it was Harriet, yeah, if it was Harriet Tubman twerkulator, like then I could see why people would be upset. But I'm like, oh, I'm trying to just celebrate this historical figure, and also really, what's the funniest part to me was like, it's called Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. It's a funny title, but I was legit just trying to tell like a bare bones biography about this person and keep it as grounded as possible, and still like have fun with it, you know um but yeah, like I just wanted to tell this story about Harriet, and do it in a fun way and do it in a genre way. And I love comic books, so I wanted to just kind of use that medium first, because that's like I grew up as a fan. Like the I learned how to read from comic books. Most people are like, "Oh, I learned how to read from school." Well, I mean, yeah, I learned how to read from school, but like the first one of the first things I read was like Death. It's funny. The first things I learned how to read were Death of Superman and Berenstain Bears, or Berenstain Bears, or Berenstain, whatever the Bear family. Like that's how I learned how to read. So I'm like, oh, why not like do this? You know? So, yeah.
Yeah, because it was a TikTok of you and the anime NYC, and it was like, "Where ain't no way." On
Oh
the
yeah,
best
he's like,
of
well, ain't no way, boy. And I'm like, what's a yeah, that was whole I got a little mad because like my friend David Gazzo, he was there helping me out. And you saw him, you met him. He's just there to help me like with counting money and like giving people the comics and all that stuff so I can like just be there and be a personality to talk to people. And he like people thought in the video that he was the creator of it. And I'm like, no. And I'm glad people in the comments were like, oh, the black dude's the creator. But some people were still trying to like hate on it regardless. They're like, we're still gonna hate on this anyway. And I was like, man, y'all trying too hard. But yeah, like it is what it is. I think the more you do something, if people don't have a strong reaction to whatever you create, then like you're doing something wrong. Like I'm glad that now that this kind of gets people it's either people are really again people are either shocked and outraged or they're excited and they're like, oh, this is fun. So you're getting people's attention no matter what. So you gotta do stuff. I'm not saying like I didn't make this book because I'm like, look at me, give me attention. Like it started out and just like, oh, I want to make something fun that I would read. And also and then it evolved into uh it evolved into I kind of want to do this to make black people feel good and to scare racist white people.
Definitely. And what kind of when people read it, what kind of like messages or like symbolism that they get that you didn't intend for them to get?
One thing is that the fact that we don't really see a black woman being like the definitive lead of a comic book. And I wasn't thinking in those terms. I was just writing about this human being who's having an extraordinary experience. And the fact that people were just like, oh, there's no black women who are in comic books. And I'm like, yo, there's Storm. And they were like, no, but it's not a Storm comic. It's an X-Men comic. And I was like, oh, well, there's like Michonne. I'm like, yeah, but Michonne's not in the title. It's Walking Dead, you know? Or I'm like, oh, well, there's Shuri and there's like the Dora Milaje. Like, yeah, but like, and like, that would we love Black Panther. It's like, it's called Black Panther. So like, the fact that, okay, I'm like, oh, like I'm making a comic book where the definitive lead is a petite, dark-skinned black woman. And I kind of have like little arguments with certain people. Like, I think I had one artist who was from Europe who didn't know who Harriet Tubman was. And they made Harriet very light skinned, like almost white. And I'm like, yeah, like, please use these types of browns when you're coloring Harriet. Please use coffee or chocolate, and that is it when you are coloring this person. Unless we're doing a page where it's at night and there's a moonlight shade on that. That I'm like, fine, whatever. But like, a lot of people like I had to like kind of fight with people about Harriet's skin tone and like or like they just couldn't like understand it or get it. And I'm like, is that like a subconscious thing? But yeah, but yeah, just kind of I didn't expect people just to hone in on that part. Then for me, I'm like, oh, like yeah, like there's no or not. But I think now they have like a Shuri book, and now they have a Storm book, and now they have an Ironheart book. But those are like rare. Like there wasn't a Storm book in the 70s. There wasn't even a Shuri book in the late 90s and 2000s. Like there was a Shuri book because, the movie came out and Tisha Wright did a good job. Ryan Coogler, they all did a good job executing that character. So that's why that happened. So kind of like because before when I make this comic, I'm like, yeah, I'm just having fun. This is dope. But now it's a little bit of a responsibility because like a lot of little girls are reading this, and little girls and little boys are also reading this, and for people to say like, oh, I see myself when I read your comic. I never really thought I never thought of it like that, because I'm like, yeah, I'm writing this comic, having fun, making it with some cool creative folks who I collaborate with. I'm like, oh, like a little girl's gonna read this and like she's gonna like think of herself in a certain way, to have more confidence in herself. Um, so I kind of have to go into there has to be like a little bit of a level of seriousness when I make this, and also though I like when I'm doing research, I'm thinking, oh, I'm just researching for myself to be a better writer, but I'm like, oh, like I gotta like I'm putting like real things that happened to this person. They'll like, yeah, we have fun because there's werewolves and demons and stuff. So sometimes I can like I'm relieved of the responsibility of telling like the true story of Harriet Tubman, because like it's Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. So I can like have a lot of fun. But like, oh, people are gonna like feel inclined to do some research on the real Harriet Tubman to see about her story and to see how this kind of connects with her story. Um, so yeah, like there is a level of I think it's like 30% like it's 70% like I'm having a lot of fun doing this, and 30% like, okay, I want to be like serious and responsible uh while doing this. So yeah.
school, and with the responsibility, how did you like first react to it? Were you like when you first like people are really taken into this?
Oh, I was scared, boy. I was scared because like I'm like usually like I don't take myself really seriously. I crack jokes and goof around. So I just I'm very loose with myself as a human being. But with my work, I'm like, oh, I gotta be serious about it. So like there was a lot of fear and a lot of like on my days where I write, I was like, man, I don't want to leave this bed. Like I kind of want to just like lay in bed and just kind of like chill out for a day. But I'm like, no, I got to make this book, and it was like, so yeah, there was a little bit of fear, so just taking it one step at a time, and then kind of like, but then there's the one thing is as I think when you're creating anything or doing anything that a lot of people are gonna either read or see potentially, you can't put too much pressure on yourself because if you put too much pressure on yourself, you're not gonna do it. So it's like be scared, give yourself a moment to be scared and be human, and then be like, all right, I gotta forget this shit because I got work to do.
Got it. Definitely can see that. And so with collaborating with people, and you said earlier how you have to like explain to them sometimes based on like different backgrounds, like who Harry Tubman is, and you have to fight with them like, no, this is really it. So how do you like choose the people you work with?
With me, I choose them based on who's a good storyteller and also who can draw black people, just keeping it real. Um, because sometimes like you get people and you're like, I was like, man, they don't know any black people in their life. Um, or like they don't reference black people. Uh, I think there was one artist who, well, there's one artist who we had to do a thing with hair in one of the issues. And like, this guy kind of lives in a very white town. So, but what I liked about this artist, I won't say his name to embarrass him. He's a great guy, great artist. But he really wanted to educate himself in black women's hair and how black women's hair looks like when it either is uh, doing certain things with whether it's being braided and stuff like that. So I had to send him a bunch of pictures and like send him pictures of like I think one of my sister and one with um uh a friend of mine who has hair like the characters in my book, and just like working in that way. um but yeah, I think the only like I think there was one European artist, and I'm not trying to shade him because he doesn't know much about American culture, even though I sent him my comic book. I was just like, yo, need to do this thing for a series. I'm a big fan of your work. And he was like, oh, cool. And when I told him about Harriet Tubman and who she was, like he like drew a white woman. I was like, yo, she ain't white. What the fuck is this? And I think he just couldn't believe it. Part of me was like, I was like, yo, does he think a black person can't do this? Like I got like low key kind of insulted, but I'm like, okay, he just doesn't know who Harriet Tubman is, so I gotta like. But I'm like, yo, she's a black woman, and then he when I kept saying she's a black woman, he's like, got it. They made her a light skinned black woman. I'm like, yo, she's dark. Like, did you not see the cover of issue 1? It's a dark skinned black woman. We blatantly Cortland Ellis. We blatantly did that on purpose. And yeah, he just wasn't getting it. It took like I think we did like 7 drafts of colors because then it got like kind of offensive because then he like made her black. He like made her like freaking like black and red lips. I'm like, yo, brother, take it back. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Exactly.
Like that's like some menstrual show bullshit. You better take it back a notch. So I said chocolate brown, not tar brown, chocolate brown. Um, but yeah, so I think it's an education for them. You have to be patient with people. Um, you have to be communicative and hold strong to your vision a lot. Because sometimes I'm like, I just want to get this done. It's not that big of a deal. I was like, no, you really gotta like get it right. You don't want people looking back because there are some things I'm like, man, that kind of bums me out. I don't like how that looks. Um, so trying to get it right because like comics take a lot of work and they take a lot of time, and a lot of it is you just really want to get things right on the first try. So yeah,
And with that, with the writing process, what's kind of your writing process?
I write in a notepad first just to get all the ideas out there, and then I type it out, and then I send it to my editor, and she'll kind of like give some notes. My editor is Sharonda J. Brown, amazing editor, amazing Black woman editor, and she'll edit through things, and then we send it um, to whoever's illustrating. Then they draw it, and then sometimes with context with the art involved, we're like, okay, we got to see how maybe the dialogue isn't flowing as smoothly, or maybe the dialogue works differently now because we have the art. Maybe because the art is so good, I don't need to have dialogue here. So you go through that process. So like you're consistently creating and consistently writing. Like I know issue 6, we're like pretty much done. We just finished all the letters on it, and I'm home now, and I'm gonna like pull it up and just kind of like look through some of the letters and be like, hey, like fix that, get rid of that. So like the process is like never done. You're consistently um working on it, and then when it's done and it gets sent to the printer, it's like, all right, we have to start this process again because I finished the script for issue 7. So it's like, okay, I gotta do this again. you know but yeah, it's a fun. It's still like my worst day making this comic is, I think, better than like my best day working one of my like survival jobs when either I worked in an office or when I worked as a waiter at a restaurant. Yeah, so like I enjoy this though I'm like your boy's kind of exhausted. Your boy's like on his second energy drink and coffee. Mm. But I would not. I wouldn't try. I wouldn't trade it for anything because I love it.
Definitely gotta find a thing that you passionate about.
Yes, and yes, yes.
So, one question I have about creating is like, will you try to write about like when your characters aren't like your identity? How do you write about how you write them?
They are your identity. Well, like, you just have to just put yourself in their. You got to like look from the lens of their eyes and put your feet in their shoes and walk around them for a little bit and see how it feels. And really, and also like just kind of meditate on it. Just have some quiet time with yourself. Like your characters talk to you when you just kind of like you just really, yeah, you really just have to just open yourself up to it. Like, I'm writing about like demons and werewolves and racist people, and you have to kind of find. I mean, with some racist people, I'm like, I ain't trying to find the nuance and shit. Fuck that. I'm gonna make them look like assholes. Fuck that. I want them to have good dialogue. But like, part of me, I'm like, okay, I still gotta like find out why people are a certain way, and just researching racism. And most racism starts because also they hate themselves. It's something that no one talks about. Like all these Trump people like hate themselves, or they have a certain weird phobia. Like I was just talking about this with a buddy of mine. Whenever we see like a black person on like Fox News, they're always like going crazier than the other white people commenting on something. Like I think I forget this dude's name. He's on Fox News. He's a gay black man, and he always like when he always like overdoes shit when they're talking about police, and I'm like, yeah, what the fuck is the problem? And I'm like, oh, this dude hates himself. He really wants to be accepted, so he has to like really be even more passionate about hating like his own race of people because he's black and he's gay. So I'm like trying to get underneath like the psychology of that, and a lot of that can just stem from I think people either do it because they want money, or they weren't loved a lot as a child or accepted a lot as a child, so they have to kind of find a way to um, make it work as an adult because they don't want to go to therapy and or like they've been doing this for such a long time. Like if this dude turned around and was just like this gay black man who's on Fox News all the time, if he was just like, yo, I don't want to, I've decided to be a liberal and shit, like they would quickly like get rid of him because like cooning never pays in the end. And also, as a black person who's liberal, I'm like, yo, I don't want you back. I don't want you here because you've been tap dancing and cooning. So, but yeah, I think like most racism and all that stuff, it just dwells from your own lack of self acceptance because they don't sleep at night. And also, racist people age badly. Like, yeah, have you seen like white racist people? Damn. Like, we were making jokes about Kyle Rittenhouse's mom, and like, I forgot this black dude on Twitter was like, "Yo, I'm the same age." I think it was a black woman. She posted a picture of herself and Kyle Rittenhouse's mom, and she's like, "We're the same age." And this black woman is like, looks like she's 18, and the Kyle Rittenhouse's mom looks like she's 77 years old. But yeah, hate just makes you hate ages your ass. So don't be problematic. Like look at Paul Rudd, y'all. He ain't problematic. He's looked the same since 1994. That's what happens.
Got it. And then let's go take it back to the beginning. So when you say you were like a bad artist, most people think that they have to be good at art to be a comic writer. What kind of helped you not think that way?
I know for a fact I can't draw this shit. I know, but like, I can draw. I draw funny cartoons or whatever. But I know for a fact I can't draw the shit. But I do know I am good at picking good artists. I am a good art director. So when it comes to choosing artists, I trust my taste as a person who's read comic books since he was 6 years old. Like I have a good eye for who can actually do it, who can actually execute it, and also I have a good eye for who can't do it. Um, I think the only thing that I think one of the things I got to work on is kind of like putting people in like if someone draws something and I don't like it and I don't think it's their best work, I have to be more mindful of how to give them direction. Um, like I think there on this most recent issue, the artist I think one artist his name is Matteo Illuminati, great artist. And I think it wasn't that the art was bad. I just didn't like the angle at which he chose to show it's a spoiler, so I gotta be careful. It's a big spoiler. So I don't want to so I had to be mindful of like, okay, I don't want it to I don't like this angle because it just makes the character look kind of weird. So I said, hey, can you kind of like have it instead of it being like a weird angle like this, can you have it be like more of a straight on thing? And you have to say that very specifically and be very succinct. Like say less. Like less is more. And he fixed it. And it looked 100 times better. Because I think when you're making a comic, when you're making art, you have to do whatever is the most dramatic and the most impactful. And I think, and that's not shitting on him. He picked an angle that I didn't think was leaving much impact on me as like a person reading it visually. So he just changed the angle of something, and I gave him a reference of like, because sometimes like when it comes to comics, I have trouble communicating it. So I'm like, so I was like, fuck it. So I think I pulled something out from another comic, and I was like, I said, like this, but not like this. Don't carbon copy it, but I want this angle, is what I'm thinking about. And he was like, got it. Came back like 10 minutes later and was like, what do you think of this? And I was like, 100 times better, you know? So yeah, but you have to be, when you make your comics, when you make books, you have to be 50% like an excited fan and 50% like critical about it. Because like this, when we do this, when it's colored, when it's inked and sent to the printer, it's going to be there forever, and we can't go back and change it. Um, and like yeah, like there's little things and other issues that like bug me to this day. And I'm like, fuck, I wish we like changed that up, because that fucking bums me out. But yeah.
Definitely, I guess as a former graphic designer, you'll definitely see both sides of how to say what you want and then receive what the other person wants.
Yeah, and it's not like you can't, it's not a personal thing. You're not like trying to attack the person. You're just trying to like be like, hey, like we're just trying to serve this god that is the comic, and taking, it's not about me, it's not about him, it's about us, and like we're a team on this, and we're collaborating on it, and thankfully, like if I give a note, he'll be like, hey, can you give me more direction, or can you like explain that a little bit more specifically, because I don't understand. Because you have to kind of help and accommodate everyone. Like I think on issue 3, the artist Sylvain Repo, who's an amazing artist, he did not speak a word of English. So I was like, shit, and I had no idea he didn't speak a word of English, because I found him on Instagram, and Instagram has a translator on. So when we did the Kickstarter and everything like that, and like I paid him, and I was really excited about him doing issue 3. He just was like, "Oh, I don't speak English." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Can you send me the script in French?" And I was like, "What?" So it's like, so I had to like, thankfully, like there's something called Adobe Reader. It allows you, if you upload it, it translate. You can put it on a translator thing, but it took me like weeks to figure that out. Um, and had to rewrite the script to make it very simple and very bare bones, just so he didn't have too much trouble with translating it. But yeah, like shit was a challenge for your boy.
It's one of the things you just never think about. It's just like, would I have to translate this? It's like one of the small things.
Yeah, man. It can be like those little fickle things. Like I was like, oh shit, I gotta like, hey, I gotta, because sometimes I put slang in my comics. I'm like, yo, make this epic as fuck, and I'll say that shit, But I'm like, okay, I gotta like, eh, that might translate differently if I say it in French. And there was a lot of that. So he would draw something, and I was like, yo, what the fuck? Why did you draw it like that? He's like, well, you said this, and then I would have to look up what my language would translate, or what this specific slang that we all know as Americans. And I'm like, oh wait, okay, that's why. So there was some things we had to redraw. Not a lot. There was like, I think there was 3 panels where I'm like, hey man, I meant this. I'm sorry. I didn't. I'm really sorry. And like he was super professional. And he did a great job on that comic. He killed it actually. Um, And then he got busy doing this other comic book, so he couldn't come back anyway. But yeah, man, you have to be you have to be 100% communicative. You have to be also like, I don't know. For me, I'm like, people are also doing me a favor, because they're drawing my script, and they're taking like, it might take, give or take, it might take me a couple of weeks to write. like to write a comic, and it might take them a couple of months to draw it. Because everyone's process is different. But again, everyone's process is different. Like issue two, it took me 2 weeks to write it. I thought it was going to take me for some reason. I thought issue two was going to take me a long time to write, but it's a very fast paced like issue. So it took me like 2 weeks to write it. It was actually going to be longer, but then I was like, wait, I think I'm going to end it on a cliffhanger, on a very specific cliffhanger. I was like, wait, I got to end it here. This is perfect. And the artist on it, Joey Vasquez, he is crazy fast. I think he's the fastest artist I've ever worked with. Because I think like he had the first like 13 pages done in a month, and I was like, yo, dude, chill, relax. Because it was like in January, I was like, yo, brother, take it back a few notches. But he was moving like crazy fast. I was like, bro, you're fast as hell. Chill. But yeah, whew, damn.
Got it. And take it back even further. So how did you learn like the publishing process as a whole?
I learned through YouTube. I looked up this white woman who I forget her name now. That's kind of bad. I was like, yeah, this white woman. But no, I think I just looked up how to self. Okay, so gonna take a sip of this energy drink right quick. All right. So I thought I was gonna be able to get a publisher because I did a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter was successful. So my arrogant self, or no, I don't want to say arrogant, I just didn't know. I thought, okay, I got the money to make the comic. It should be easy for me to get a publisher, just like that. And people love my comic, and I was all over the news. So I thought, okay, I'll easily get Image or Dark Horse just to publish this, and it'll be fine. That did not happen because there's a hundred other me's out there who either made more money than me or who are emailing them. So I was like, shit. So this is difficult. This is hard. So I didn't know I was gonna have to self-publish it until like so I think I was focused. I was really honed in on one publisher particularly, and then that they passed on me. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll just self-publish this. And but I was like, I don't know how to self-publish it. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So I just Googled. I think I looked it up on YouTube because we learn everything on YouTube now. Like freaking, like if you grew up without a daddy, you got YouTube as your daddy. Like you got to use how do I tie a Windsor knot tie? YouTube. How do I change my oil? YouTube. How do I change my tire? YouTube. How do I self-publish a comic book series? YouTube. And so I go on YouTube, and like this woman just kind of broke it down. She was like, yo, buy a barcode, buy an ISBN number, assign your ISBN number and accounts to your comic, and take it from there. And you can self-publish on Comixology. You can self-publish on I think this is before Webtoon was as big as it is, and Amazon. So, or you can just like, get it printed yourself at a printer house and take it from there. So that's what I did basically. And like, and that was a big learning curve. I think that took me a couple of months to get and understand. I'm still like learning it because like sometimes I don't know because I have to do it every single time a comic comes out, and every comic when it comes out, it's like a few months and far between because of writing it, getting the artist to draw it. It takes a minute, and then I'm like, oh wait, fuck, how do I do this again? I totally forgot how to do this. I'm like, shit. So like, yeah, just kind of reteaching myself those little things. But yeah, but basically, it's like getting your barcodes, your ISBN numbers, or buying multiple ones, and assigning them to each chapter of your comic book. and then distributing either like the way I got my comic books in stores was a very humbling experience of just calling them, just cold calling bookstores and just saying like, "Hi, I'm David. I write Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. Would you like to carry this?" You know, or thankfully sometimes they would discover the book through me being on a podcast talking to you, or like they see it on the news or something like that. Thankfully, so. That, That's how it. That's how it. That's how it gurks. That's how it. I said that's how it gurks. That's how it works. Kind of.
Got it. So I'm gonna wind this down. Give us time to do other things. So again, see my mom. She loved the books. She still has them.
Oh, awesome!
She read them. I was like, oh my gosh, she's reading. And then
That's good. Awesome.
Because when I seen them, I was really thought about Abraham Lincoln, the Vampire Hunter. I was like, she liked that movie. This would be perfect.
I'm glad she liked it. I'm glad she read the book. That's awesome.
And then, so the last question is, what would you name your origin story?
I would name my origin story. My origin story. I would name it. I'm quiet because I'm thinking. Just Dave. Just Dave. Yeah. Or actually, no. Fuck that. The superhero. I would make it Dynamic Dave. There we go. Yeah, that's what I would call it.
Nice. Well, thank you again for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Anytime. That brings another episode of the Let's Get Podcast to a close. Again, you can find more information about Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer by clicking the link in the description below. For next week, I'm my friend Mohammed to speak about the different possibilities of the metaverse. Hope you continue a nice day, and I hope to see you there.